Hello, world. Hello, America. Hello, Texas. I am your host of the Quantum MechaniX Podcast, Brandon Lalonde, coming to you from San Antonio, Texas, nestled in between the Permian Basin and the Eagleford Shale. And I have a very special episode 3 for you today. And it's in memoriam of a quiet giant within the land drilling industry, a mentor and a friend, and someone who found me in the middle of nowhere in West Texas, Mr. Jerry Jacobs. He has passed on April 23rd, and I just wanted to dedicate this episode to him as well as future efforts within my endeavors with Quantum MechaniX, the platform, and my participation within the drilling industry. Um, I wanted to start by just going over. I wrote an article that I submitted to IADC, and it is not an obituary, but really just a reflection on Jerry and the type of person he was, his impact, some of uh, his personal, the things that he liked to do, his hobbies, and the impact that he really had on Patterson UTI as Patterson turned the corner out of 2010 when I first started from paper-based inspections to web-based processes and them rolling out their permission to work process, their lockout tagout process, and so many other amazing programs that they rolled out. Jerry was at the forefront of that. Jerry was a pioneer for Patterson UTI, and he changed my life. He changed a lot of people's lives. He had work kids that he brought into what they called the policy development group, which Jerry was the head of as the director of HSE. And Jerry would identify people out in the field, whether it was in HSE operations, tech services, that had a lot of potential to do big things within the company. And he would identify them, and he would bring them under his wing at Houston Corporate, and we would do amazing things. It was like the corporate think tank. We got so much done in that group. It was unprecedented. I was able to work with some of my contemporaries, people my age. Some of them had legal degrees. They were out of whether they were out of the North Dakota region or the Permian Basin or East Texas or the Rockies. You just got to meet a lot of people that were doing such big things and had so much potential in the industry. And with Patterson, he was really able to unlock that potential, and with sage counsel and guidance, really get you to lock in and see the potential within yourselves, and give you those opportunities to jump in and make a big impact. And I was, in the middle of that. I had a lot of amazing opportunities that happened because Jerry took a chance on me, a writer, a roughneck on rig 245 in the middle of nowhere. Rankin, Texas is where I was. And I had hair like down to here. I was kind of a wild card, a wild child, but with Jerry's guidance, I was really able to balance my passion for the industry with some decorum in the corporate realm. Although I wasn't great at it in terms of balancing some of my passion, right? And so, but Jerry actually really did give me a lot of sage counsel to be better, right? To improve and to say, yeah, I there's some things I need to work on. This is what you're great at. Keep doing that. But I'll tell you that if you keep going, if you do this, this will happen. Don't do this, right? And so Jerry was more than just the director of HSC. He was a pioneer. I would say, characterize people as giants, right? Just whether it's their personality, their accomplishments, uh, or just what they mean to an organization and to people. I think Jerry encompasses all of those things. And Jerry wasn't like very outspoken. Jerry would always listen. He would listen first and then he would speak. And when he spoke, people listened because Jerry was a part of this historical timeline of Patterson UTI. He was with UTI before the merger of Patterson and UTI, and before the IPO, and before all the acquisitions of the smaller drilling companies that those two companies coming together, those competitors coming together. Uh, he was a part of all of that history, and he was a part of all of the like 400 rigs. I don't know how much rigs all over the place, working, whether it was out of Snyder, out of East Texas, uh, working then in Houston, and he had many journeys along the way. He just wasn't the HSE director, right? He had a long journey with Patterson UTI, and then he found himself in Houston, and I'm glad he did because he was able to, he had the policy development team, but only someone with that type of historical understanding of the company, that type of depth, that type of experience, loyalty, tenure could really head a group like that. And I was like, well, maybe I could do that in tech services. But again, I was like way too young. I didn't know enough about the fabric of the company, the fabric of the industry. I had so much to learn at the time. And that was 8 years ago when I was with Patterson. And even now today, 8 years out, there's still so much to learn. And that type of, I guess it's like a Socratic ethic is like the more you learn, the less you know, or the more that you don't know, right? And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned as a young whippersnapper who was, I mean, by all accounts, very successful before the age of 30, with Patterson. But looking back today, would I do things different? Yes, of course, I would. I would absolutely. But then again, it was like that type of passion and desire and pushing and wanting to accomplish. Jerry helped me put that together. So what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to read this article that I submitted it to IADC because I want people to know that this quiet giant is what I'm calling the article, a quiet giant of the land drilling industry. Is I want everyone to know, whether it's just land drillers or offshore drillers all over the world, that this person had a huge impact on a tier one drilling contractor in North America and beyond, right? Patterson is now international. And the foundation of what makes a company able to make that jump, he built a lot of it. It was his ideas, or they gave him the ideas and he knew how to execute. So I'm going to pull up my article here, and I'm going to read it for y'all. Um, and I think it'll give you just some insight on who this person was, and the tremendous impact that he had on the industry. So Jerry Jacobs, the passing of a quiet giant in the land drilling industry. There are people we encounter in the oil and gas industry who we refer to as giants, known so because of their substantial contributions, expertise, personalities, impact, and more. The land drilling community has many. We lost one of these giants on April 23rd, Mr. Jerry Jacobs, the quiet giant of Patterson-UTI Drilling. Jerry's career spanned from the mid-90s at UTI before the mergers and IPOs into the 2020s with Patterson-UTI as a Tier 1 drilling contractor. Those who knew or worked with Jerry will agree that his work ethic, energy, and drive were incredible. You wouldn't know he was overcoming battles with cancer outside the challenges of bringing Patterson-UTI into a new era of world-class systems and safety as the HSE Director. Jerry was a catalyst in developing Patterson UTI's foundational safety systems and web-based processes. Under the umbrella and within the historic timeline of Patterson-UTI, his breadth of expertise ranged from HSE, rig equipment, HR, IT, and beyond, a true all-around talent. Jerry's natural ability and desire to learn had him at the cutting edge of enterprise SharePoint management system development to flight simulators and weather monitoring on his free time. Jerry also had the unique ability to see the potential within new talented individuals coming up in the organization and provide the structure and guidance for them to manifest that talent into net positive ways. Through his policy development group, he mentored countless future leaders with sage counsel and guidance. Jerry was immensely talented, soft spoken, and a kind man that will be missed by many people he impacted in his professional and personal life. A quiet giant whose memory lives on in the heart of the drilling industry. His memorial service is May 21st at Champion Forest Baptist Church Chapel from 11 to 12:30. So, very emotional. I'm trying to hold it back because of the impact that he had on my life. And Jerry was super talented. He was a web guru. He was a technology guru. And even in his, I would say he was an older man when I had met him. I was in my 20s, but he was teaching me things about technology, web-based processes. I mean, he was the one pioneering the incident management system with the Scintillate Group, SAI Global. I mean, he was cutting edge. He's the one who implemented the RFID secondary retention program and handhelds, and he made his own work aids. He was all over the place, and he had he was basically the head of the audit process, and we would go out to different regions all over the United States, and Jerry would make us get up at like 4 a.m. and after traveling that day, and we would just hit rigs, right? We would go to the rigs and we would get these audits done, and his pace was just phenomenal. Even as a young person, it's like, wow, Jerry was just he had so much energy. And, he was battling cancer and nothing could touch him because he just had a will, a spirit in him that would not be denied. And it was just unbelievable to see and very inspiring for me, setting just like the best example of what it takes to succeed in that industry. And so to this day, I think about that and I hold myself to those tenets of what it means to be successful and what you really have to do to make that jump, right? Of thinking about it and saying, this is what I want in life. No, you have to go get it. And you have to work really hard for it. And I was very lucky to have those types of mentors in my life as a young man, as a young professional, to say, this is what it takes. And you have to be multifaceted and you have to grow as things happen around you, as we move out of paper-based into web-based, as we go from one type of audit to another type of audit, as there's new people, new departments, shakeups here and there. Like Jerry was he was consistent, and he was someone that was going to be there long term. You could just tell. And so I'm very appreciative for having Jerry in my life. And I had reached out to him. It had been a number of years. I reached out to him in early April, and I'm endeavoring on Quantum MechaniX, a new platform that I'm taking to market, and I'm trying to get in front of drilling contractors. And and so a lot of what quantum mechanics is based off of a lot of the things that Jerry Jacobs actually taught me, or he allowed me to build with Patterson. He gave me those opportunities and the leash, if you will, to go and swing at it, whether I hit or miss. Or whether it was a bunt or a home run, I don't know, but at least I was able to, for me, get that type of experience. And so So Jerry gave me those opportunities, and it was a fantastic time in my career. But quantum mechanics is a reflection of that, um, and so I reached out to him because I could not stop thinking about him. Because a lot of what I was doing and a lot of what the industry needs right now for smaller drilling contractors is those lessons and those opportunities that he gave me 8 years ago and beyond. But I do want to share kind of how I made this quantum leap, if you will, excuse the pun, from rig 245 out in West Texas. This is when Patterson had like over 200 rigs operating at once, and so for Houston corporate to reach out to a rig directly and talk about, hey, who's this one individual was really unprecedented. But I'd like to share the story with you, the audience, because it just is a testament to who Jerry was and the type of mentality he had and why his group was so successful and how he could just find these people like a needle in a haystack. So when I broke out in 2010, I just met all of these amazing people. Like my first rig was rig 60 out in Midland, Odessa, right next to the airport. And I had a fantastic driller named Will Rogers, and he was not too much older than me, but he was a lot older than me in terms of his life experiences and his experience on the rigs. He was brilliant, and I'm coming out of Texas A&M, and then there was some other college kids that were out in West Texas, and they basically seeded them and incubated those kids with that rig 60, and so they would try to wash you out. It was not easy, of course. Roughnecking is not easy, but it is for me. It was like, my gosh, it taught me so much. I loved it. I really, worked so hard to prove myself, and it was the best thing that has really ever happened to me, is going out to rig 60. He moved on. He went to Will Rogers moved on. He went on to be a rig manager, and so but that kind of kicked off my West Texas career, and I moved down into South Texas in the Eagle Ford Shales, closer to home in San Antonio, and I had another fantastic crew. Leo Sanfilippo was the driller there. One of the most brilliant men I have ever met, and they had an older crew. I was not going to really ascend because the crew was just fantastic, and they were career roughnecks, career motor hand, career derrick hand. But what I found is that, like, I wanted to articulate in a way that I could, because I was, a writer. That's what I did in college. That's what was one of my skill sets. And so I was writing about all these people that I met, and I started roughneckforummagazine.com. And I was writing about things like the people I would meet, whether it's directional drillers or whether it was people on the rig, whether it was like, what do you need to have in your toolbox, right, to be successful as a motor hand, dermatitis. I wrote a an article about the safety man, and so I went from South Texas back out to West Texas when Will Rogers was the rig manager of Rig 245. And out there, that's when I really kicked off my writing career. I had basically just accumulated all these ideas, and then I started putting them out. And I just started sending out these articles. Anyone who'd come on the rig, I'd print them out, boom, 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 hand them out, really publishing now, pushing them out through Roughneck Forum magazine. And there was this one article called The Safety Man, and it was, at first it was the perspective of a roughneck, and then you have these safety guys come in, and it was actually what kicked this off, and what inspired it was the Houston audit team audited us, and so I got an audit in South Texas, right, on rig 246. Then when I went to 245, I got them again. And it's just the attitude. I don't know, there was just like, from the perspective of a roughneck, you have outsiders coming in, you get defensive, right? And you have these preconceived notions of who these people are. And so I wrote about that. And the first part of the article that I wrote, The Safety Man, was kind of like that perspective of the roughneck and the safety guy. And then the last part of the article was really about why these measures are in place and why they're necessary to have a successful drilling company, a successful operation. So I qualified it there at the end. And I passed that out to everyone. In the regional office there in the Permian Basin, they had it like on the clipboard, like on the bulletin board, because people like the perspective. And somehow that article made its way to Houston. And the area managers had identified me as, you know, a high performer, and someone who could articulate themselves, and someone who was like, hey, let's, you know, pay attention to this guy and maybe let's put some effort into developing him. Well, word got out to Houston, and I believe it was the legal team reached out and, you know, asked my driller some questions, and then the policy development team reached out and they were like, well, you know, can, when he's off of tower, can you have him call us? And I was working nights at the time. So I did call them early that morning, and my rig manager was like, I don't know, Brandon, I think you're going to get fired. So I'm like, okay, well, you know, what am I doing? And then I started having this existential crisis. It's like, what am I doing out here anyway? Why am I doing this? I'm college educated. I have a lot of passion for what I'm doing, but maybe I should be doing something else. Maybe this is a sign that I should be doing something else. And so I talked to the individual on the policy development team, and you know, they had some preliminary questions, and he was like, well, would you be willing? We have a position open in the policy development team in our Houston team. Would you be willing to come in and would you like to interview? There's a position open. So I'm like, whoa, what? I did not see that coming. So I said, well, let me think about it. I need to talk to my rig manager. I need to talk to my crew. And so I did. And you know, they were like, Brandon, you know, this is a big opportunity. You know, you want to make things better for the Roughnecks, and maybe you can do it with a platform in the Houston office. And so with their blessing, I reached out and I said, yeah, you know what? Let me come and interview. Now, let me give you I've got a picture here of what I looked like at the time. So I had long hair and I'd put it up in a ponytail, bandana, and put in my hard hat. So it didn't seem like I had long hair. But let me show you what I look like. Hold on. Jerry's over me. There we go. So, you know, hunky guy. But and my hair was even longer then. Uh, when I went into interview. But I did put it in a ponytail. Even then, it was really long, and so I was a little self-conscious about that going into a corporate office. But that was me. That's 2013. All right, that's me, 2013, and so I don't. They had never seen me. I don't think they didn't know. I don't think they knew what to. Well, they had seen me on the audits, but they didn't know I had long hair. So I was a little self-conscious about that. Nonetheless, so I went in. I went into Houston. And so I walk into Houston, I'm waiting, and you know, with the, you know, the admin at the front, they take me back to Jerry's office, and there's Jerry Jacobs. And Jerry Jacobs, his name was at the top of every single policy. I had no idea what to expect. You know, I thought Jerry Jacobs was gonna. I don't know what I expected, but I had never seen Jerry Jacobs besides his name, and so on a piece of paper, you know, policies, doing pre-towers and things like that. It's like, who's this Jerry Jacobs? And then there he is. Uh, so it's Jerry Jacobs and like five other people. Okay, like, you know, there was another director of HSE, there was the environmental manager, the whole policy development team, and I'm just like, and then they have my articles. They had read my articles. Uh, so they had my articles, and so then they start, you know, we just start conversing. I was pretty confident, you know, and so uh, but they had, you know, they had very insightful questions, and it was all very respectful, but it was kind of nerve-wracking, even though I had, you know, a lot of confidence. And then Jerry sends them all out of the room. So it's just Jerry and me. And I'm like, Well, he started he was like, Brandon, yeah, I read your articles and the one about the safety man, you have a lot of points, but you need to know that from what we're doing and from our level, like we all really care about what happens out on the rig. We care about the roughnecks, and we don't get paid if if they're not safe, and they do what they do out in the field. So we really respect what y'all are doing out there, and I hope you see that. And there's a lot more that I think you need to learn. And the only way you're going to be able to learn those things is from a higher point of view. And I really like you. I think this is an opportunity that you should think about. Uh, what do you think? And it kind of shocked me because here I am recently. Uh, you know, basically criticizing the audit group that came out, and he just approached it with like such an open heart, and he was, he's like, hey, you have a lot of good points, and I can understand your perspective, but there's more that you need to learn. So then I was like, well, I mean, I need to think about it. I need to talk about it. I really appreciate the opportunity to interview. And he was like, well, how about this? Let me take you down the office and let me introduce you to Mike Holcomb. And so Mike Holcomb is like, well, he's the president of the company. And I had heard a lot of stories about Mike Holcomb. He was beloved with the Roughnecks. And, I had just heard stories about him. And I had heard him over some calls. And like just to meet Mike Holcomb, I felt embarrassed because I had such long hair, and I was not prepared for that. And I was dressed nice. I had like a tie on and stuff. And so I met Mike Holcomb, which was kind of surreal at the time. And then I met Mike Garvin, who everyone was talking about at the time because he was the one rolling out a lot of change for the Roughnecks from the VP of Operations Support and Technical Services. There was a lot of change that he was bringing in. I mean, Mike Garvin was a legend coming in, had written his own book. He was, a very interesting man, and I got to work with Mike Garvin for, I basically anything that I put out in terms of policy, maintenance documents, other people's documents went through Mike Garvin. So we had, I thought, a really good relationship. I knew what he wanted. I knew what was not going to get approved. But at that time, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that I was going to have these types of really amazing relationships with people that I think have made huge impacts on the land drilling and just like drilling contractor landscape. So that was the first time I met him, and it was unbelievable. And then I was hooked. I talked to my parents about it. I talked to Will Rogers about it. I talked to my crew about it. I did go back out to the rig, and after a couple days out on the rig, I accepted the position, and it was like a roller coaster ride from there. But it was because Jerry took a chance on me, and I ended up doing a lot of really amazing things, I think, for Patterson UTI. A lot of that, what I did is still implemented there today. So he gave me an opportunity to make a legacy in the industry, and his legacy is just like he's impacted positively so many people that um, to have him not here is it's really it really hits you. But Jerry, it's kind of like he's kind of like probably Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? He's gonna always be looking over us, those that worked right with him, his work kids. He'll always be looking over the Roughnecks. He'll always be looking over Patterson UTI and the land drilling industry altogether. So this episode is dedicated to Jerry. Quantum Mechanics moving forward is dedicated to his memory, and I will be there at his memorial. And I just want to say that there's very few people in my life that I can say have like changed my life, like just foundationally, and he is one of them. He is. the reason why I'm doing this today. He gave me the opportunities that I have today. So I love you, Jerry. Thank you so much for being a foundational figure, someone that I could look up to, someone I call a friend. And I will always have you in my heart. And everything that I do moving forward, you're going to be there. All of those lessons learned as a young man, as a roughneck, or someone in your policy development team, those lessons and that spirit live on through me and a lot of others. So this is this is episode 3 of the Quantum MechaniX Podcast. I am Brandon Lalonde. If y'all can make it to his memorial, if he has had an impact on your life, I would suggest being there. And I know there will be a lot of people there. But you know, let's take this opportunity to appreciate the mentors that we have had, and to be a mentor, and take that model and pay it forward to those who are looking for guidance, who have lots of potential, who can do a lot in the land drilling industry, or just for any drilling contractor that's out there. So world, America, Texas, I am Brandon Lalonde with Quantum MechaniX, coming to you from San Antonio, saying thank you so much. And we love you, Jerry. You'll always be in our memory. Thank you for everything.